There's been a lot of public crying recently on YouTube to change the game mechanics, mainly regarding the PvE and PvP portion of the game. This is not one of those videos. What's even worse, people get audience approval for it, which is not exactly ideal, as I've seen the video where a guy complains about PvP and demands all to be turned into PvE, and the majority of his audience is agreeing with him on this nonsense. I'm a PvE player myself, but in the case of Dune I'm more patient, as this is a game in the early stages of development. So in this video you're listening to my own take on why Dune Awakening is not doing well. The problem that I have here is
remove the ornithopter rockets, remove the PvP in the air, remove PvP entirely, make PvP on the ground only.
And of course, the opposition, the PvPers, would prefer the whole game to be PvP. Well, Dune at the moment is neither of that, at least not fully, but there are several reasons for that, which we'll get to eventually. Even worse is that all of this shit, the crying, actually has audience and support, people who think alike. Therefore, we encounter the issue number 1, expectations management. And by definition, this is, in the context of gaming, expectations management refers to the process of ensuring that players and game developers themselves have a shared understanding of what the game is, what it offers, and how it's meant to be experienced. It involves setting realistic expectations about the game's genre, narrative style, rules, and the ways players can influence the story. Effectively, managing expectations can lead to increase in player satisfaction, engagement, and a more positive overall gaming experience. Dune has shared this vision, but not completely, and I feel like the direction of the game wasn't clear enough from the start, even for the Dune developers. To add, they changed the fundamentals of the game, primarily the deep desert, where for some players the expectations weren't met, so they left. Halfway through the launch, the developers attempted to communicate this message and the changes they were making in attempt to damage control the rapidly falling numbers of active players. This again was great for some and hated by the others, which is fine because you can't make everyone happy. Dune here decided they were going to lean towards PvE players, because they are the ones crying out the loudest. I'm a casual PvE player myself, and this is coming from me, and I have little to no interest in PvP. So in my far from humble opinion, they decided to do this because PvE cohort is usually the largest in contrast to PvP. Hence, PvE players bring the most of the revenue. Beware now, we are not talking about Call of Duty or Counter-Strike here, we're talking about Dune, whichever genre they fall into. Is it PvE, mmorpg, open world, co-op, survival, shooter, or something from that selection? PvE players make up the most of the player base. The second issue is that they provided us with a broken and incomplete game that has no endgame from either PvE or PvP point of view. I'd like to point out that this is not the player's responsibility to facilitate the content. It has to be provided by the developers. Here I'm referring to one of Joel's statements, which is the lead guy in Dune, where he said something along the lines, "We have a great concept here and mechanics that allow it, but players are not using it." In Dune's defense, the PvE part in Haga Basin is one of the most immersive game experiences I've ever played, and I've been gaming for a while now. The ornithopters and the flying mechanics are brilliant, especially the bigger planes, and it all looks great. But that's about it. NPCs are copy-pasted, even their voices and dialogue, and all the sand in Haga Basin and Deep Desert, as well as the content, seems copy-pasted as well. The co-op part is non-existent, and the game could have been a single-player title with multiplayer online for PvP instead. The devs here stated they would try to provide content every 3 to 4 months. I believe this was their prediction of how long the current content would last before they would need to push more and drip feed it to keep the interest going. based on the average player's hours. What they didn't expect is there is too many bugs out there who will simply no-life the game out of the existence. The issue many of that demographic didn't get is that once they reach the end of content, they will lose the fucking interest and quit. It's the feeling of not having everything that makes you play more, in contrast to having everything and then having nothing to do. Whether that content is time-gated or locked by PvP engagement. In fairness, Dune, like it said before, it's in early stages of development, and if we compare it to other large games like World of Warcraft, it doesn't have instances for 5 or more people or classes that support that narrative. There are no raids, no battlegrounds or other organized content provided by the developers. But the first battleground in World of Warcraft was released 7 or 8 months after the game first launched in 2004. So if you compare this to Dune, this is somewhat okay, because the development will or should continue, and the game has an obligation to investors to show a return on investment, either by growth or revenue. In case of Dune, since it's a paid game, it's both, it's growth and revenue. Therefore, all the crying about it and the content is not really based on logic or knowledge, because no one works for free and no game was intended to be no-lifed 24/7 and then complained about when there is no content. The third issue is that they, as it appears, haven't allocated in time the customer service or game masters that would tackle all the issues the game had. Probably because the business plan didn't include this in the expenditure part. Missing, disappearing, and bugged out ornithopters, melange, items, you name it. The customer's time, which is our time, was heavily neglected, and items were never returned. According to some Discord posts, players received messages that their stuff will never be returned. However, according to my recent experience, I have to give props to request help function, as they reached out within a couple of hours stating they would return the parts to assemble my lost Orni. But they are unable to return the items such as gear or inventory yet. Something, again, is better than nothing. But in a heavy, grind-oriented game such as Dune, this was a game deleting mechanic, courtesy of Funcom, where the management is solely responsible for losing a large number of players due to bugs, exploits, duping, griefing, and so on. Apart from the management, it's also the fault of the players, who have been crying out the loudest to have the game tailored to their taste, and now they left because they reached the end of content either too fast or too easy. I personally lost more ornithopters to bugs than to PvP. Like in many other games before Dune, the quality control sucks, and they let the players test their own game for them, for free, in hope they won't abuse whatever they find. Somewhere along the way, and way before Dune was released, some cunt has figured they might save money by letting players test the game and release incomplete garbages, essentially. In my opinion, many of the grind/crafting requirements have been artificially inflated in Dune to give us something to do while they or do not go on vacation and come up with a plan. Was this a coincidence? I don't know, you tell me. We could of course talk about unbalanced, predictable and not immersive land thread, no minimap and constant opening of the large map, overly repetitive actions and building your base every week in deep desert without having any convenient means of transport. My final verdict is that Dune is unfinished, and we should give it a chance as it holds a great potential. However, currently it feels we are playing a minimum viable product where they gave us a single player content and expected us to PvP in deep desert, lose stuff and grind for hours or days to restore what we lost. The time investment to do this repetitively is just not realistic, and as a casual player, I'm not here to suggest improvements or endlessly wait for fixes and content updates. There are plenty of Steam reviews, should anyone want to see, that have great ideas on how to improve the game. Apart from that, Dune is ambitious, interesting and super immersive game that's been utterly fucked up by the management. If timing is everything in business and game releases, then instead of taking vacations, they should have taken the time to fix the fucking game. Otherwise, there won't be anything left to fix.